Hi, I'm Dr. Witten, and I wanted to talk to you today about respiratory health. You know, in the news with all this COVID-19 going on, all that people are really talking about is the vaccines, the drugs, how many people are dying, what we're going to have to do, lockdowns, how quickly we're opening things up. And nobody's really talking about how we can take care of our own immune system, how we can take care of our health. And I want to do a video to address that because our respiratory health is a huge issue in this country. 10% of all emergency room visits are for respiratory illnesses. 2.6 million people in the world die each year from respiratory infections. So I really wanted to address how we can naturally take care of our health in ways that aren't always covered in the media. It really comes down to three things: pollution and toxins, stress, and the nutrition that we eat. So if we can handle those things and improve those things, we'll have a much better chance of having good respiratory health. Now that we're living indoors during this quarantine situation, we should talk about how we can have healthy air indoors. They have vacuums and air purifiers that have HEPA filters that take out 99% of the pollutants. You know, when you dust, you realize just how much dust and particulate matter there is in the air, and those things carry bacteria. So just having a good air filter or air purifier in the winter, you know, we're indoors and the heater is on and that dries out the air. So just having a good humidifier can really go a long way to having good air to breathe. The biggest factor with COVID that they're finding influenced who lived and who died. The places with the most deaths from this virus were the places with the highest pollution. Wuhan had 40 times the pollution level that Los Angeles had. I mean, it's no wonder so many people were dying there initially. And then when people were on lockdown, there weren't cars driving around, the pollution got a lot better, and so the death rate went way down. Same thing in northern Italy, there's lots of pollution in the big cities in Spain and places like Los Angeles and New York City. So we're finding that the hotspots for death with COVID corresponded to the places where the pollution level was the highest. So if we can have healthy air to breathe, if we go outside and get fresh air, that's another issue with these masks. We're not breathing fresh air, we're rebreathing our own carbon dioxide. The next thing is stress. So being out in nature is really great for our mood. Being in the sunlight. So in the sunlight has many benefits. Just having the fresh air, getting the sunlight, we're getting the blue light, which really helps with our sleep cycles, and sleep is very important for our health. Also, the sunlight gives us vitamin D, which is really important for our immune systems. They found that vitamin D supplementation really lowers the rates of the common cold, especially people with low vitamin D levels, of course. So vitamin D is a very interesting vitamin. It actually acts more like a hormone. It's called a vitamin, but it's really a hormone. We get it naturally from the sun. When we get sunlight, the cholesterol in our body actually manufactures vitamin D. So about 20 minutes in the sun gives you the equivalent to 10,000 to 20,000 IU of vitamin D. That's IU is international units. Actually, this year they've just changed it to milligrams. So 1 milligram is equivalent to 40 IU. The FDA just made that change this year. But they recommend somewhere between 400 and 600 IU of vitamin D, but we get 10 to 20,000 IU just from 20 minutes of skin exposure to the sun. And that's tremendous for your bone health, for your cardiovascular health, for your immune health. So there's tremendous benefits from getting sunlight. If you're in a place, say in the winter, where there isn't a lot of sun, you can supplement it with drops of vitamin D or vitamin D capsules. Vitamin E is also extremely important. They've got studies that show that people get 30% less respiratory infections from getting adequate amounts of vitamin E. Vitamin C also, they've shown tremendous benefit with COVID. With people who have come into the hospital, if they get vitamin C, high-dose vitamin C every 6 hours. Almost nobody was dying from COVID when they were getting hydroxychloroquine, vitamin C, and anti-inflammatory meds, cortisone. People were recovering almost 100% from COVID. So that protocol was extremely successful with COVID, much better than being on the ventilators. COVID, as it turns out, isn't primarily a respiratory disease. It's a disease that affects your hemoglobin, your ability to bind oxygen. It used to be talked about that the reason why there's a flu season is because in the winter people aren't getting enough vitamin D. I actually learned something this season, that although vitamin D level is a big factor in respiratory health, the reason that we have a flu season, it's not like the flu comes and goes. It's always present. We have hundreds of thousands of different viruses in our bodies all the time. During the winter, there's no leaves on the trees, and the leaves actually filter the air, so the pollution level goes up in the winter just because all the leaves are on the ground, and so we get less filtration. And the CO2 levels go way up in the winter because there's not as many leaves to filter that out. So then in the spring, when the leaves come back, that's why the flus disappear, because the air gets cleaner, at least in the northern hemisphere. It's the opposite in the southern hemisphere. So during this time of the COVID virus, we're actually seeing the highest suicide levels. We're indoors, the stress is high, the things we're seeing on TV are really scary. We've never had a lockdown like this. We don't know what's coming. We don't, our businesses are closing. Keeping our stress levels low is really important. That's where exercise comes in. It's great we get endorphins from exercise. We get our lungs breathing harder and our heart's pumping, and it just helps our cardiovascular and respiratory health and our immune function. And you always end up in a good mood after exercising. So that's something we have to get out and do, and get in the habit of having a daily exercise regimen. And doing it with our family, getting out there and taking walks, taking hikes, getting out there in nature with the trees. And so that can handle the stress. And turning off the news, turning off the TV, reading books. Just doing things that make you laugh, make you smile. Watch funny videos. Another thing that is really helpful for lowering stress is singing. It actually helps your autonomic nervous system change to a parasympathetic state. See, our autonomic nervous system is either in sympathetic mode or parasympathetic mode. And so sympathetic is the fight or flight mode. Parasympathetic is when we're relaxed. And singing actually changes our brain to the parasympathetic phase. It's something nobody ever talks about, but puts us in a good mood when we're singing. Having good nutrition, singing, getting out in the fresh air, exercising, making sure our air is pure, that we're breathing indoors through vacuums, through air purifiers, making sure our air is humid through humidifiers. All those things give you the best chance of having good respiratory health, and none of those things are being talked about. So I wanted to address these things to put the power of your health back in your hands, and so you're not relying on pharmaceutical products. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and hope you're doing great, and we'll see you soon.